We're going to continue with the rear end of the SCT410SL build, moving on to bag F, which contains some highly customizable parts, the rear hubs and CVAs. The rear hubs and camber links bag F, contain parts you can really begin to customize according to your driving style or particular race surface, thanks to various hub inserts whereby the smallest adjustment can make a big difference to your lap times. With that said, let's get started. We'll begin with the hub, so with the inserts removed from the plastic tree, place the two top inserts into either side of the hub. Take extra care with orientation here. You want to replicate the same on both sides of the hub using the image on the guide. So we have the stock orientation here. The same applies for the inserts into the bottom of the hub too, taking care again with orientation. With those in place, grab the 12mm ball stud from your pack of hardware, feed through an 8mm washer, through the stock position on the hub, and secure into place with a flanged lock nut, just until it's nice and snug. With a large bearing inserted into the inner side of the hub, and a smaller bearing on the outer side, the hub is complete and ready for the axle to be inserted. Before doing that though, use the same steps to prepare the opposite hub. So all four inserts, taking care with the orientation of course, ball stud complete with its 8mm washer, fed through and secured with the locking nut, finished off with the bearings on either side. With hubs prepared, we're now ready to construct our axles. I like to add a touch of grease inside the axle before I begin. Don't go crazy here, a small amount is perfectly fine. So with drive shaft in hand, insert the small black piece with the hole pointing upwards, slide on the axle, and drop in a pin to keep everything in place. The grease helps to keep everything nice and free. Repeat the same process for the opposite side, and with that, insert the axle through the previously prepared hub, and insert the retaining pin to keep everything in place. Finally, drop on a wheel hex, which is indented, so ensure the pin slips inside, and secure into place with a single 3mm set screw, along with some thread lock applied too, while taking care not to over tighten. Repeat on the opposite side. And our CVAs are now complete. Give them some turns, making sure they're completely free, and with that they are now ready to be mounted to a previously prepared rear end assembly. Note that both CVAs and hubs are not precisely the same, therefore care needs to be taken when installing onto the rear end assembly, as noted in the manual. So with our left hub assembly in hand, feed the dog bone end into the diff cup, and the bottom of the hub then sits at the opposite end of the arm. The hinge pin can be inserted to keep the hub in place, although be sure to insert 2 spaces from the plastic tree into the rear as you push the pin through, and 1 spacer in the front, followed by a 4mm button head screw to secure the hinge pin into place. Again, this doesn't need to be super tight. Repeat the same steps on the opposite side, making sure those small washers are inserted correctly, so 2 in the rear and 1 in the front of the hub, and then secure into place. So with rear hubs and drive shafts now in place, we need to build our rear camber links. To do this, we need to insert the turnbuckles into the rod ends. As usual, these are not pre-threaded either, so as we insert the turnbuckles, we'll be creating the threads at the same time. The best way to do this is to apply a small amount of grease to the turnbuckle threads. I then like to hold the rod end with the Tekno wheel wrench like this, and then push the turnbuckle hard into the rod end as you twist. Once you feel it bite, you may find it easier to use a wrench to grip the turnbuckle as you twist the rod end into place. Repeat on the opposite end, bearing in mind one side has reverse threads, and then repeat the process on the second turnbuckle too. Take care not to twist the turnbuckle in too far, as you could end up creating a dimple on the inside of the opposite end, which will in turn affect the free movement of the pivot ball. If created correctly, you should have a 43.5mm gap between rod ends here. Anyway, once done, insert an 8mm ball stud into the straight end of each camber link, ensuring the T logo on the turnbuckle is facing upwards as you push the ball stud from the bottom. And then insert each into the camber plate, the stock position being the uppermost hole, before securing into place with flanged lock nuts, ensuring both are nice and snug. With the camber plate ready, the next step is to reach for the shock tower and insert 2 shock standoffs, with the stock position being middle hole, before securing into place with a set of flanged lock nuts. Now we have both shock tower and camber plate ready for installation onto the rear assembly. So with these lined up, we can position these across the top of the bulkhead and secure into place with 2 14mm button head screws, one on either side. Finally, the opposite ends of the camber links pop straight into the ball studs previously installed onto the top of each hub. If you've kept everything stock, notice how the camber link is on the inside of the camber plate on either side, and more importantly, when looking rear on, the notch on each turnbuckle must face the left side of the vehicle. The final step to this bag is attaching part of the rear chassis brace, positioned just above the sway bar mount and held in place with 2 25mm button head screws fed in from the opposite side. Again, just need to go snug here without over tightening, so it's always best to use a hand driver, even for just the final few turns rather than an electric driver. And that's our rear end pretty much complete. Everything is turning nice and freely, as are the arms and the camber links. Super high quality stuff. With the rear end complete, we need to follow a pretty similar process with the front end too. So, placing the rear assembly to one side for the moment, we'll move across to the front end assembly in the next video with bag G.